Chapter 1. The Perfect Illusion. John Harrison sat in his spacious living room, admiring the house that he and his wife, Jessica, had worked so hard to build. The 3,200-square-foot house was more than enough for the three of them, John, Jessica, and their 16-year-old daughter, Diana. The beige carpet stretched across the room, softening the footsteps of anyone who walked on it, while the elegant furniture and tasteful decor created a warm and inviting atmosphere. Despite the beautiful home and their comfortable lifestyle, John couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Jessica had been distant lately, her once affectionate demeanor replaced by a cold, detached attitude. She was always busy with work or out with friends, leaving John to spend more and more time alone. One evening, John decided to talk to Jessica about it. She was sitting on the couch, engrossed in a book, when he approached her. "Jessica, can we talk for a minute?" John asked, sitting down beside her. Jessica looked up, her blue eyes betraying a hint of annoyance. "Sure, John, what is it?" "I've noticed you've been distant lately," John began, choosing his words carefully. "Is everything okay?" Jessica sighed and put her book down. "I'm just stressed with work, that's all. There's nothing to worry about." John nodded, but he wasn't convinced. He had always trusted Jessica, but something in her tone made him uneasy. He decided to let it go for now, hoping that things would get better. Days turned into weeks, and Jessica's behavior only grew more suspicious. She would come home late, smelling of a perfume that wasn't hers, and her phone was constantly buzzing with messages that she quickly hid from John. He knew he had to do something to find out what was going on. One Friday evening, Jessica announced that she had a late meeting at work and wouldn't be home until late. John watched her leave, his mind racing with possibilities. As soon as she was out the door, he sprang into action. John had always been good with technology, a skill that had served him well in his job as an accountant. He decided to use those skills to find out what Jessica was hiding. He set up a small, discreet camera in their bedroom, pointing it at her nightstand where she often left her phone. If she was hiding something, this camera would catch it. That night, John sat in the dark living room, waiting for Jessica to come home. When she finally walked through the door, it was past midnight. She seemed surprised to see him still up. "You're still awake?" she asked, her voice a mixture of surprise and irritation. "I couldn't sleep," John replied, trying to sound casual. "How was your meeting?" "It was fine," Jessica said, avoiding his gaze. "I am exhausted. I am going to bed." John watched her go upstairs, his heart heavy with suspicion. He waited for a few minutes, then quietly followed her. Peeking into their bedroom, he saw Jessica sitting on the edge of the bed, her back to him. She picked up her phone and started typing rapidly. The next morning, John retrieved the footage from the camera. His hands trembled as he watched Jessica's secret conversations unfold on the screen. The messages were from a man named David, someone she referred to as "my love." The texts were explicit, detailing their plans to meet and their feelings for each other. John felt a wave of anger and betrayal wash over him. He had always trusted Jessica, but now that trust was shattered. He knew he had to confront her, but he needed to be smart about it. He decided to gather more evidence before making his move. Over the next few weeks, John carefully monitored Jessica's activities. He installed more cameras around the house and tracked her phone. Each new piece of evidence confirmed his worst fears: Jessica was having an affair with David, a colleague from work. One evening, as Jessica was preparing to go out again, John decided it was time to confront her. "Jessica, we need to talk," he said, blocking her path to the door. "John, I really don't have time for this," Jessica replied, her irritation evident. "Make time," John said firmly. "I know about David." Jessica's face paled and she took a step back. "What are you talking about? I've seen the messages, Jessica. I know you're having an affair with him." Jessica's shoulders slumped and she sank into a chair. "John, I can explain." "Explain what?" John interrupted, his voice shaking with anger. "That you've been lying to me? That you've been cheating on me with some guy from work?" Tears filled Jessica's eyes, but John couldn't find it in himself to feel sorry for her. "I thought we had a good life, Jessica. I thought we were happy." "I'm sorry, John," Jessica whispered. I never meant to hurt you. John took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside him. I don't want to hear your excuses. We are done, Jessica. I want a divorce. Jessica looked up at him, her eyes wide with shock. John, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. No, John said firmly. It's too late for that. Pack your things and leave. I don't want you here anymore. Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face. She stood up and walked upstairs, leaving John alone with his thoughts. He felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. His marriage was over, but he was determined to move forward and build a new life for himself. As Jessica packed her belongings and left, John couldn't help but think about their daughter, Diana. How would she take the news? He knew he had to be strong for her, to show her that they could get through this together. The next morning, John sat down with Diana and explained what had happened. She was understandably upset, but she handled it better than he had expected. We'll be okay, Dad, Diana said, hugging him tightly. We'll get through this. John smiled, grateful for her support. He knew the road ahead would be tough, but he was ready to face it head on. He had lost his marriage, but he still had his daughter, and that was enough to give him hope for the future. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Foundation. John Harrison found himself thrown into a new reality. He and Jessica had agreed to separate, and while she moved out, he stayed in their once shared home with their daughter, Diana. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt eerily quiet and empty. John had to adjust to being a single parent, juggling his job and taking care of Diana. One Saturday morning, as John was making breakfast, Diana walked into the kitchen. Her long brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore a slightly worn-out sweatshirt from her high school. Morning, Dad, she said, giving him a quick hug. What's for breakfast? Pancakes, your favorite, John replied, trying to sound cheerful. Diana smiled, but John could see the sadness in her eyes. Thanks, Dad. I've got to meet Jenny later to work on a project. Jenny from the soccer team? John asked, flipping a pancake. Yeah, we've got this huge biology project due next week, Diana said, sitting at the table. John nodded. Just make sure you are back by dinner. I was thinking we could order pizza and watch a movie. Sounds good, Diana replied, her smile a little more genuine this time. As they ate breakfast, John's mind wandered back to Jessica. He wondered if she was happy now, if her new life with David was worth destroying their family. He pushed the thoughts away, focusing on the task at hand, being there for Diana. Later that day, after Diana had left to meet Jenny, John decided to dive into his work. As an accountant, he often found solace in numbers and spreadsheets. He opened his laptop and began working on a client's financial report. However, his mind kept drifting back to the events of the past few weeks. John decided he needed a distraction, something to take his mind off the turmoil. He remembered an old friend, Ryan, who had always been good at giving advice. Ryan was a police officer known for his straightforward approach to problems. John picked up his phone and called Ryan. Hey man, you got a minute? John, long time no talk, what's up? Ryan's voice boomed through the phone. Just, a lot has happened. I could use some advice, John said, trying to keep his voice steady. Sure thing, buddy. How about we grab a coffee and catch up? Ryan suggested. Sounds good. How about Java Junction in an hour? John proposed. Perfect. See you then, Ryan agreed. John felt a little better after the call. He showered, changed into fresh clothes, and headed to Java Junction, a cozy cafe that had been his and Ryan's favorite hangout spot since college. When John arrived, he spotted Ryan at a corner table, already nursing a cup of coffee. Ryan stood up and gave John a bear hug. Good to see you, man. You too, John replied, sitting down. He ordered a coffee and waited for it to arrive before diving into his story. So, what is going on? Ryan asked, leaning forward. John took a deep breath and began to recount everything that had happened. He told Ryan about Jessica's affair, the confrontation, and the aftermath. Ryan listened intently, nodding occasionally. That's rough, John. I'm really sorry you had to go through that, Ryan said when John finished. Thanks. I just feel so lost, you know? I thought we had a good life. I never saw this coming, John admitted. Sometimes people change and there's nothing we can do about it, Ryan said. But you did the right thing by confronting her. Now, you need to focus on yourself and Diana. John nodded. I know. It's just hard. Have you thought about getting back out there? Meeting new people? Ryan asked, raising an eyebrow. John chuckled. Not really. I mean, it's only been a few weeks. Take your time, but don't close yourself off. You deserve to be happy too, Ryan advised. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of John's phone buzzing. He glanced at the screen and saw a message from his boss, reminding him about an upcoming meeting. John sighed and put the phone away. Work never stops, huh? Ryan said with a grin. Tell me about it, John replied. But thanks, Ryan, I needed this. Anytime, John. Just remember, you're not alone. You've got friends who care about you, Ryan said, giving John a reassuring pat on the back. John left the cafe feeling a bit lighter. He decided to take a walk around the park before heading home. The fresh air and the sight of children playing helped clear his mind. He realized that while his marriage had ended, his life wasn't over. He had a daughter who needed him, friends who supported him, and the potential for new beginnings. As he walked back to his car, John made a mental note to focus on the positive aspects of his life. He would be there for Diana, work hard at his job, and eventually, he would open himself up to the possibility of new relationships. The thought gave him a sense of hope he hadn't felt in weeks. When he arrived home, Diana was already back, sitting at the kitchen table with her textbooks spread out in front of her. Hey, how was your day? John asked, walking over to her. It was good. Jenny and I got a lot done, Diana replied, looking up from her notes. Great. How about we order that pizza now? John suggested. Yes, please, Diana said, her eyes lighting up. They spent the evening eating pizza and watching movies, just like they used to. For the first time in a long while, John felt a sense of normalcy returning to their lives. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them head on, one day at a time. Chapter 3. The Unveiling. John Harrison's suspicion and determination grew each day. The betrayal by Jessica had left him wounded but also resolute. He needed more than just a confrontation, he needed undeniable proof, not just for his peace of mind, but to ensure that Jessica could not manipulate the situation to her advantage. One evening, John decided to take his investigation a step further. He had already placed discreet cameras around the house, but now he needed to find out more about David. Using his skills, he hacked into Jessica's phone records and discovered frequent calls and messages to an unfamiliar number. After a bit of research, he confirmed that the number belonged to David, Jessica's colleague. Determined to gather concrete evidence, John took a drive to the school where Jessica and David worked. He parked a distance away, waiting for the school day to end. He watched as teachers and students streamed out, his eyes scanning for Jessica and David. Finally, he saw them. They were walking out together, laughing and talking animatedly. John's heart pounded as he snapped photos with his phone. He followed them discreetly as they got into David's car and drove away. John kept a safe distance as he tailed them through the city. They eventually pulled into the parking lot of a small, secluded restaurant. John watched as they entered, hand in hand, their affection for each other clear. He took more photos and waited outside, knowing he needed to see how far they would go. After what felt like an eternity, Jessica and David emerged from the restaurant. They didn't head back to the school or go their separate ways. Instead, they drove to a nearby hotel. John felt a sickening churn in his stomach as he watched them check in and disappear inside. Unable to stomach anymore, John drove home, his mind racing with what he had just witnessed. He now had irrefutable proof of the affair. The next step was to confront Jessica, but he wanted to do it in a way that would leave no room for denial or manipulation. That night, John called Ryan again. I need your help, he said, his voice steady but filled with resolve. Anything, John. What's going on? Ryan asked. I need to confront Jessica about the affair, but I want to do it in a way that makes it impossible for her to twist the truth, John explained. Ryan was silent for a moment. Are you thinking of a public confrontation? Exactly. I want to gather both our families and lay everything out. There will be no escape for her, John said. Ryan agreed to help, and together they planned the confrontation. They decided to have it at John S. house, inviting both families over under the pretense of a family gathering. The day of the confrontation arrived. John S. heart was heavy, but he knew it was necessary. He had prepared everything meticulously. The living room was set up with a projector to display the photos and videos he had gathered. Jessica arrived first, looking suspicious but not overly concerned. She greeted John with a forced smile. "What's this all about?" she asked. "You'll see," John replied curtly. Soon after, the rest of the family arrived. Ryan was there, along with John S. parents, Jessica S. parents, and a few close friends. The atmosphere was tense, and everyone sensed something was about to happen. John cleared his throat and addressed the room. "Thank you all for coming. There's something I need to share with you. It's about Jessica and our marriage." Jessica S.'s face turned pale, and she glanced nervously at David, who was also present. "John, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling. John ignored her and continued. "I've discovered that Jessica has been having an affair with David. I have evidence to prove it." He connected his laptop to the projector and began displaying the photos and videos. The room was silent as everyone watched the evidence unfold. Jessica S. parents gasped, and her mother covered her mouth in shock. John S. parents looked devastated, and Ryan S. expression was one of anger and disbelief. Jessica tried to speak, but John cut her off. "Don't bother denying it, Jessica. It's all right here." David stood up, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "This is a private matter, John. You had no right." "You made it public when you decided to betray me and my family," John shot back. Jessica broke down in tears, covering her face with her hands. "John, please, let's talk about this privately." "No, Jessica, we're doing this here and now. You owe everyone in this room an explanation," John said firmly. Jessica S. father, Brad, stood up, his face stern. "Is this true, Jessica?" Jessica nodded, unable to meet her father's eyes. "Yes, it is true. I am sorry." Brad shook his head in disappointment. "You've shamed our family, Jessica." Jessica S. mother, Monica, was sobbing quietly, and John S. parents looked equally distraught. The room was filled with a heavy silence as the reality of the situation sank in. John took a deep breath and turned to Jessica. "I want a divorce. I can live with this betrayal." Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I'll move out tonight." As the families began to leave, John felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. He had done what needed to be done, but it had come at a great emotional cost. Ryan stayed behind, helping John clean up. "You did the right thing, John. It had to be done." "I know," John replied, his voice heavy with fatigue. "I just wish it didn't have to be this way." "Sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones," Ryan said, patting John on the back. That night, as John lay in bed, he felt a sense of closure. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. He knew the road ahead would be tough, but he was ready to face it. With his family and friends by his side, he would rebuild his life and find happiness again. Chapter 4. Public Exposure. The days following the confrontation were tense and emotionally charged. Jessica moved out of the house that evening, taking only a few essentials with her. John and Diana tried to settle into a new routine, but the house felt emptier without Jessica's presence, even if it had been a source of pain. John was determined to keep things as normal as possible for Diana. He focused on his work, ensuring that he was present for her and helping her with anything she needed. Their bond grew stronger, and John found solace in knowing that they were getting through this together. One evening, as they were sitting at the dinner table, Diana looked up at John. "Dad, are you okay? You've been really quiet lately." John smiled at her, trying to hide his exhaustion. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Just a lot on my mind." Diana nodded, looking thoughtful. "Do you think things will ever go back to normal?" John took a deep breath. "I think things will be different, but that doesn't mean they can be good again. We'll find a new normal, and we'll be happy. I promise." Diana smiled, and they continued their dinner in a more relaxed atmosphere. Afterward, they watched a movie together, and for a while, it felt like old times. The next morning, John received a call from his lawyer, Paul, who had been helping him with the divorce proceedings. "John, I've got some news. Jessica has agreed to an amicable settlement. She's willing to let you keep the house and will only take what she brought into the marriage." John felt a wave of relief. "That is great news, Paul. Thank you for everything. It is my job, John." "Take care and let me know if you need anything else," Paul replied. With the legal matters settling down, John felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He knew he had a long way to go, but he was finally seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. One afternoon, as John was working in his home office, his phone rang. It was Melissa, the dance instructor he had met recently. They had exchanged numbers after a class, and John had found her to be a kind and understanding person. "Hey, John, how are you holding up?" Melissa asked. "I'm doing okay, Melissa." "Thanks for checking in," John replied. "I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee sometime." "Just to talk and get out of the house," Melissa suggested. John hesitated for a moment, then decided it might be a good idea. "Sure, I'd like that. How about tomorrow afternoon? Sounds perfect. There's a great cafe downtown. Let's meet there at 2, Melissa said. "See you then," John agreed, feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness. The next day, John arrived at the cafe a few minutes early. He ordered a coffee and found a table near the window. As he waited, he watched people pass by outside, lost in their own worlds. It was a reminder that life went on, despite the turmoil he had been through. Melissa arrived shortly after, her warm smile immediately putting John at ease. "Hey, John, it's good to see you." "You too, Melissa. Thanks for inviting me," John said as they sat down. They spent the next hour talking about their lives, their experiences, and their hopes for the future. Melissa shared stories about her dance classes and the students she taught, while John opened up about his struggles and the changes he was going through. "I'm really sorry about what happened with Jessica," Melissa said sincerely. "You didn't deserve that, thank you. It has been tough, but I'm trying to move forward," John replied. "And you will. You're strong and you have Diana." "She's lucky to have you," Melissa said. John smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I'm lucky to have her too." As they finished their coffee, Melissa suggested they take a walk in the nearby park. The weather was nice, and John welcomed the chance to spend more time with her. They strolled through the park, talking and laughing, and for the first time in weeks, John felt a genuine sense of happiness. Their conversation was interrupted by the ringing of John's phone. He checked the caller ID and saw it was Ryan. "Sorry, I need to take this," John said, stepping away for a moment. "Hey, Ryan, what's up?" "John, I just got some news. David's wife has filed for divorce too. Apparently she found out about the affair," Ryan said. John felt a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. I guess it was inevitable. "Yeah, but there's more. David has been suspended from his job pending an investigation. It seems the school board isn't happy about the scandal," Ryan continued. John sighed. "Well, I can say I am surprised. Thanks for letting me know. Take care, John." "Talk to you soon," Ryan said before hanging up. John rejoined Melissa, who looked concerned. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just some news about David. His life is falling apart too," John said. Melissa nodded. "It's karma, I suppose." "I guess so," John agreed, feeling a sense of closure. "Thanks for today, Melissa. I really needed this." "Anytime, John. I'm always here if you need someone to talk to," Melissa said, giving him a reassuring smile. They continued their walk, enjoying the peace and tranquility of the park. As the sun began to set, they said their goodbyes and promised to meet again soon. When John returned home, he felt a renewed sense of hope. He was starting to rebuild his life one step at a time. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but with the support of his friends and family, he was confident he could overcome them. That evening, John sat down with Diana to talk about their future. "I want us to make some changes, Diana. Positive changes that will help us move forward." Diana looked curious. "Like what, Dad? How about we start with something fun? Maybe a weekend trip somewhere, just the two of us," John suggested. Diana's eyes lit up. That sounds amazing. Where should we go? John thought for a moment. How about the beach? We haven't been in a while. Yes, I'd love that, Diana said excitedly. John smiled, feeling a sense of excitement himself. Then it settled. We'll plan a trip to the beach. It's time for us to create new memories. As they began planning their trip, John felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He was finally moving on from the pain and betrayal, ready to embrace a future filled with hope and happiness. Chapter 5. Aftermath. The beach trip did wonders for John and Diana. The sound of the waves, the warmth of the sun, and the joy of spending uninterrupted time together helped them both heal. They returned home with new energy and a renewed sense of purpose. John resumed his routine, but he also started to explore new interests. He remembered how much he used to enjoy cooking before life got so complicated. He decided to enroll in a gourmet cooking class, hoping it would provide a creative outlet and a way to meet new people. One evening, after a particularly satisfying cooking session where he had perfected a risotto recipe, John received an unexpected text from Jessica. He stared at the message for a moment before opening it. John, can we meet? I need to talk to you. It's important. John felt a mix of emotions, curiosity, apprehension, and a bit of anger. He took a deep breath and replied, Okay, when and where? Jessica responded quickly. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the cafe on Main Street. The next day, John arrived at the cafe a few minutes early, feeling a knot of tension in his stomach. He ordered a coffee and sat at a corner table, waiting. Jessica arrived soon after, looking visibly stressed. She spotted John and made her way over, sitting down across from him. John, thank you for agreeing to meet, Jessica began, her voice strained. What is this about, Jessica? John asked, keeping his tone neutral. I wanted to apologize, Jessica said, her eyes filling with tears, for everything, for the betrayal, the lies, and the pain I caused you and Diana. John listened, not saying anything. He had waited a long time for this apology, but now that it was happening, he wasn't sure how to feel. I know I can undo the past, but I wanted you to know that I am truly sorry. I was selfish and foolish. I lost sight of what was important, Jessica continued. Why now? John asked, finally speaking. Why the sudden need to apologize? Jessica sighed. Because I have realized how much I have lost. David and I are over. He left town, and I am left with the consequences of my actions. I have had a lot of time to think, and I know I hurt you deeply. John looked at her, searching for sincerity. I appreciate the apology, Jessica, but it doesn't change what happened. We've both moved on. I know, Jessica said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to say it for my own peace of mind. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared past hanging between them. How's Diana? Jessica asked, breaking the silence. She's doing well. We took a trip to the beach recently. It was good for both of us, John replied. I'm glad to hear that. I miss her, Jessica said, her voice cracking. John felt a pang of sadness. Despite everything, Jessica was still Diana's mother. She misses you too, but this is hard on her. She is strong, though. She'll get through it. Jessica nodded, wiping away a tear. I hope one day she can forgive me. Give her time, John said gently. She'll come around when she's ready. Jessica gave a small, sad smile. Thank you, John, for listening. Take care of yourself, Jessica, John said, standing up. I hope you find what you're looking for. As John walked out of the cafe, he felt a sense of closure. Jessica's apology hadn't changed the past, but it had given him a sense of finality. He could now move forward without looking back. Back home, John continued to focus on his cooking classes. He found joy in creating new dishes and sharing them with Diana. They spent evenings experimenting with recipes, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. One day, as John was preparing a new dish for his class, he received a call from Melissa. Hey, John. I was wondering if you'd like to come to a dance event this weekend. It's a fundraiser for the community center. John hesitated for a moment. A dance event? I'm not exactly a great dancer. Melissa laughed. You'll do fine. It's for a good cause and it'll be fun. Plus, I could use a dance partner. John smiled. All right, UV convinced me. I'll be there. The event was held at the community center, decorated with fairy lights and filled with people from the neighborhood. John arrived and quickly spotted Melissa, looking radiant in a simple yet elegant dress. She waved him over, and he joined her, feeling slightly nervous. "You made it," Melissa said, giving him a hug. "Wouldn't miss it," John replied, feeling more at ease. The evening was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. John found himself enjoying the event more than he had expected. He and Melissa danced together, their movements growing more synchronized as the night went on. As they took a break, Melissa turned to John. "I'm glad you came. You're a natural." John chuckled. "Thanks, but I think you are being generous." "No, really, you're doing great," Melissa insisted. "And it's nice to see you smile." John looked at her, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I haven't had this much fun in a long time." "Well, there's more where that came from," Melissa said with a wink. "How about we make this a regular thing?" John's smile widened. "I'd like that." The evening ended with a slow dance, and John felt a sense of contentment he hadn't felt in years. He knew he was on the path to healing, and he was grateful for the support and friendship Melissa had shown him. As they left the event, Melissa gave him a kiss on the cheek. "Good night, John. I'll see you soon." "Good night, Melissa," John replied, watching her walk away. He felt a flutter of excitement in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. Back home, John sat on the porch, reflecting on the evening. He realized that he was ready to embrace new beginnings, to open his heart to new possibilities. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. Chapter 6. New Beginnings. John Harrison felt the beginning of something new with Melissa. Their regular dance events became a cherished part of his routine, providing not only an escape, but also a growing bond between them. Diana noticed the change in her father, the lightness in his steps, and the genuine smiles that graced his face more frequently. One Friday evening, John and Diana were preparing dinner together. Diana was chopping vegetables while John stirred a pot of homemade tomato sauce. The aroma filled the kitchen, making it feel warm and inviting. "Dad, you seem really happy lately," Diana said, glancing at him with a smile. John looked up from the stove. "I guess I am, sweetheart. Life's been getting better, and I've been enjoying spending time with Melissa." "I am glad," Diana replied. "You deserve to be happy." "Thank you, Diana." "That means a lot," John said, feeling a swell of gratitude for his daughter's support. As they finished dinner and sat down to eat, John's phone buzzed. It was a message from Melissa. "Hey, John, I've got some exciting news. The community center is hosting a spring festival next month, and I thought it would be fun for us to participate. What do you think?" John smiled at the message. He had grown to love the community events and the sense of belonging they brought. "Sounds great. Count me in," John replied. The following weeks were filled with preparations for the spring festival. John and Melissa spent hours organizing activities, planning dance performances, and decorating the community center. Their teamwork brought them closer together, and John found himself looking forward to every moment they spent together. One afternoon, as they were setting up decorations, Melissa turned to John. "I've been thinking, John, maybe we should put on a special dance performance at the festival, something that shows off all the hard work we've put in." John chuckled. "You mean show off your hard work? I'm just trying to keep up." Melissa laughed. "Nonsense. You're doing amazing. And besides, it's not about being perfect. It's about having fun and sharing that with everyone." "All right, I am in," John agreed. "What did you have in mind?" "I was thinking we could do a mix of different styles. Something fun and energetic with a bit of romance thrown in," Melissa suggested, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "That sounds perfect," John said, feeling a rush of anticipation. They spent the next few weeks practicing their routine, working late into the evenings to perfect their moves. John felt a renewed sense of purpose and excitement, something he hadn't felt in a long time. As the day of the festival approached, the community center buzzed with activity. Volunteers set up booths, decorated the stage, and prepared for the influx of visitors. John and Melissa arrived early, helping with the final preparations and making sure everything was in place. The festival began with a flurry of activity. Families and friends gathered, enjoying the various games, food stalls, and performances. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and joy, a testament to the hard work everyone had put in. As the evening drew closer, it was time for John and Melissa's performance. They took their places backstage, nerves and excitement mingling in the air. "Ready?" Melissa asked, squeezing John's hand. "Ready?" John replied, feeling a surge of confidence. The music began, and they stepped onto the stage. Their routine was a seamless blend of styles, from lively swing dances to romantic waltzes. The audience watched in rapt attention, clapping and cheering as John and Melissa moved gracefully across the stage. As the final notes of the music played, John and Melissa struck their final pose, out of breath, but exhilarated. The audience erupted into applause, and John felt a wave of pride and joy. They bowed and left the stage, greeted by friends and community members who congratulated them on their performance. "You were amazing," Diana exclaimed, running up to her father and hugging him tightly. "Thanks, sweetie. I'm glad you enjoyed it," John said, hugging her back. Melissa smiled, watching the father-daughter moment. "You were fantastic, John. I am so proud of you." John felt a warmth spread through him. "I couldn't have done it without you, Melissa." As the festival continued, John and Melissa walked hand in hand, enjoying the festivities and the company of their friends. John realized how far he had come since his life had been turned upside down. He had found new happiness, new purpose, and a new beginning. Later that evening, as they sat under the stars, Melissa turned to John. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, and where this is going." John's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "I care about you, John. A lot. And I can see a future with you," Melissa said, her voice soft but confident. John looked into her eyes, feeling a rush of emotions. "I care about you too, Melissa. More than I can put into words. Then let's not rush things. Let us take it one day at a time and see where it leads," Melissa suggested. John nodded, feeling a sense of relief and happiness. "I'd like that." They shared a tender kiss under the stars, sealing their commitment to each other and their future. As the festival wound down, John and Melissa walked back to their cars, hand in hand. They knew there would be challenges ahead, but they were ready to face them together. Back at home, John felt a sense of peace. He had found love again, and he was excited about the future. He knew he still had a lot to learn and many obstacles to overcome, but with Melissa by his side, he felt ready for whatever came next. That night, as he lay in bed, John thought about the journey he had been on. He had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and uncertainty, but he had come out stronger. He had found new love, new purpose, and a new beginning, and for the first time in a long time, he felt truly happy. Chapter 7. Romantic Sparks. John and Melissa's relationship continued to blossom in the weeks following the festival. They spent as much time together as they could, balancing their busy lives with their newfound romance. Their connection deepened, and they both felt an undeniable chemistry that neither had experienced in a long time. One evening, John decided to cook a special dinner for Melissa at his house. He wanted to surprise her with a romantic meal and a cozy evening in. He spent the afternoon preparing her favorite dishes, making sure everything was perfect. Diana had plans with friends that night, so it was just the two of them. As John set the table, he felt a flutter of nerves. He wanted everything to be perfect for Melissa. Melissa arrived right on time, looking stunning in a simple yet elegant dress. John greeted her with a warm smile and a bouquet of her favorite flowers. "These are beautiful, John." "Thank you," Melissa said, giving him a kiss on the cheek. "I'm glad you like them." "Dinner is almost ready," John replied, leading her to the dining room. They sat down to a delicious meal, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. They talked about their days, their dreams, and their plans for the future. John found himself opening up to Melissa in ways he hadn't with anyone else. After dinner, they moved to the living room, where John had set up a cozy nook with blankets and pillows. He had a bottle of wine and a playlist of their favorite songs ready. "This is amazing, John. You really went all out," Melissa said, settling into the blankets. Only the best for you, John replied, sitting down beside her. They sipped wine and listened to music, enjoying the intimacy of the moment. As the evening went on, their conversation grew deeper and more personal. John, I've been thinking a lot about us, Melissa said softly, looking into his eyes. John felt his heart race. What about us? I know we said we'd take things one day at a time, but I can help thinking about the future. I see a future with you, John. A real future, Melissa said, her voice filled with emotion. John took her hand, feeling a rush of love and commitment. I see a future with you too, Melissa. I've never felt this way before. Melissa smiled, her eyes shining. I love you, John. I love you too, John replied, leaning in to kiss her. Their kiss was tender and filled with promise. As they held each other, John felt a sense of completeness he hadn't felt in years. He knew that with Melissa by his side, he could face anything. The weeks turned into months, and John and Melissa's relationship continued to thrive. They supported each other through the ups and downs of life, growing closer with each passing day. They made plans for the future, dreaming of the life they would build together. One sunny Saturday, John decided to take Melissa on a surprise trip. He told her to pack a bag and be ready by noon. She was curious, but trusted him completely. They drove out of the city, heading towards the countryside. The landscape changed from urban to rural, and Melissa's excitement grew. After a couple of hours, they arrived at a charming bed and breakfast nestled in the hills. This place is beautiful, John, Melissa said, looking around in awe. I thought we could use a little getaway, John replied, taking her hand. Come on, I've got more surprises in store. They checked into their room, which had a stunning view of the rolling hills and vineyards. After settling in, John led Melissa to a small winery nearby. They spent the afternoon tasting wines, learning about the winemaking process, and enjoying the picturesque scenery. As the sun began to set, John took Melissa to a secluded spot overlooking the vineyards. He had arranged for a private dinner under the stars, complete with a candlelit table and a delicious meal prepared by the bed and breakfast chef. John, this is incredible, Melissa said, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. I wanted to do something special for you, John replied, taking her hand. You mean so much to me, Melissa. I can't imagine my life without you. Melissa's heart swelled with emotion. You mean everything to me too, John. They enjoyed their meal, basking in the romantic atmosphere. After dinner, they walked back to their room, hand in hand, feeling closer than ever. That night, as they lay in bed, John turned to Melissa. There's something I've been wanting to ask you. Melissa looked at him, curiosity and anticipation in her eyes. What is it, John? John took a deep breath, gathering his courage. Melissa, will you move in with me? Melissa. Eyes widened in surprise and joy. Yes, John, I would love to. John felt a wave of relief and happiness wash over him. You've made me so happy, Melissa. You've made me happy too, Melissa replied, kissing him tenderly. The decision to move in together marked a new chapter in their relationship. They spent the next few weeks preparing for the move, merging their lives and their belongings. It was a time of excitement and anticipation, filled with moments of joy and discovery. On the day of the move, friends and family gathered to help. Diana was thrilled about the change, excited to have Melissa as part of their daily lives. The house was filled with laughter and activity as boxes were unpacked and rooms were rearranged. That evening, as they sat down to their first meal together in their newly shared home, John felt a deep sense of contentment. He looked around the table at Melissa and Diana, feeling grateful for the journey that had brought them here. To new beginnings, John said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, Melissa and Diana echoed, clinking their glasses together. The future was bright and filled with promise. John knew there would be challenges ahead, but with Melissa and Diana by his side, he felt ready to face anything. They had created a new life together, one built on love, trust, and hope. As they settled into their new routine, John and Melissa continued to support and encourage each other. They made time for the things that mattered, dancing, cooking, and spending quality time with Diana. Their love grew stronger with each passing day, a testament to their commitment and their shared dreams. One evening, as they danced in the living room, John looked into Melissa's eyes and saw the future he had always dreamed of. He knew that together they could overcome any obstacle and create a life filled with happiness and love. Chapter 8. Unexpected Turns. Life seemed to settle into a pleasant rhythm for John, Melissa, and Diana. The house was full of laughter and warmth, and John felt a deep sense of contentment. However, just when things seemed perfect, life threw an unexpected curveball. One evening, as John was finishing up at work, he received an urgent call from Ryan. "John, I need to talk to you." "It's about David," Ryan said, his tone serious. John felt a knot form in his stomach. "What about him?" "There's been an incident. David's wife, Amanda, has filed a restraining order against him. She claims he has been harassing her ever since their divorce proceedings started," Ryan explained. John frowned, feeling a mix of concern and curiosity. "Why are you telling me this, Ryan?" "Because David has been asking around about you and Melissa." "I thought you should know," Ryan said. John's heart skipped a beat. "Why would he be interested in us?" "I don't know, but I think you should be careful. If he's causing trouble for Amanda, he might try something with you guys," Ryan warned. "Thanks for the heads up, Ryan." "I'll keep an eye out," John replied, feeling a sense of unease. John hung up the phone, his mind racing. He knew he had to tell Melissa, but he didn't want to alarm her unnecessarily. When he arrived home, he found her in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Hey, John, how was your day?" Melissa asked, smiling as she stirred a pot on the stove. "Eventful," John replied, trying to sound casual. "I got a call from Ryan. It is about David." Melissa's expression turned serious. "What happened?" John explained the situation, watching as concern clouded her face. "Ryan thinks we should be cautious. David's been asking about us." Melissa sighed, setting down the spoon. "What should we do?" "Just be vigilant. We can let him disrupt our lives, but we need to be prepared in case he tries anything," John said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Okay." "We'll be careful," Melissa agreed, her eyes filled with determination. Over the next few days, John and Melissa took extra precautions. They made sure the house was secure, and they were more mindful of their surroundings. Despite the underlying tension, they tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Diana Sasake. One evening, as they were watching a movie together, there was a loud knock on the door. John and Melissa exchanged worried glances before John got up to answer it. He opened the door to find Amanda standing there looking distressed. "Amanda? What are you doing here?" "I didn't know where else to go," Amanda said, her voice shaking. "David has been following me. I think he knows I'm here." John quickly ushered her inside. "Come in. You are safe here." Melissa joined them, her concern evident. "What happened?" Amanda sat down, tears streaming down her face. "David's been harassing me ever since I filed for divorce. He has threatened me, followed me, and I am scared he'll do something worse." John felt a surge of anger. "We want to let him hurt you, Amanda. You can stay here as long as you need." "Thank you," Amanda said, her voice trembling. "I just didn't know where else to turn." "We'll help you," Melissa said, her voice gentle yet firm. "You're not alone." They spent the evening comforting Amanda, making sure she felt safe. John called Ryan to inform him of the situation, and Ryan assured them he would keep a close watch on David. The following days were tense. Amanda stayed with them, grateful for their support. John and Melissa did their best to provide a sense of normalcy, but the underlying fear was palpable. One afternoon, as John was working from home, he received a call from his boss, Paul. "John, we need you to come in. There is a situation we need to address." John felt a pang of anxiety. "What's going on?" "It's about the new project we were working on. We have hit a snag and we need your expertise to sort it out," Paul explained. "I'll be there as soon as I can," John replied, hanging up the phone. He turned to Melissa, who was sitting nearby. "I need to go into the office for a bit. Will you be okay here?" "Of course. Don't worry about us. We'll be fine," Melissa said, giving him a reassuring smile. John kissed her goodbye and headed to the office, his mind still preoccupied with the situation at home. When he arrived, he found Paul and the team in a heated discussion about the project. They spent hours working through the issues, finally finding a solution. As John was packing up to leave, he received a frantic call from Melissa. "John, It S. David." "He S. here," Melissa said, her voice filled with fear. John S. heart raced. "Lock the doors and call the police. I am on my way." He rushed out of the office, his mind filled with worry. When he arrived home, he found the police already there, talking to Melissa and Amanda. "Are you okay?" John asked, running to Melissa S.'s side. "We are fine. The police got here just in time. David was trying to break in, but they caught him," Melissa explained, her voice shaking. John felt a mix of relief and anger. "Thank God you were safe." The police informed them that David had been arrested and would be facing charges for harassment and attempted break-in. They assured John and Melissa that they would take all necessary steps to ensure their safety. As the police left, John held Melissa close. "I am so sorry this happened. I should have been here. It's not your fault, John. We are safe, and that is what matters," Melissa said, her voice steady. Amanda, who had been silent through the ordeal, spoke up. "Thank you both for everything. I don't know what I would have done without you. You are part of our family now, Amanda. We'll always be here for you," John said, his voice filled with conviction. The days that followed were challenging, but John and Melissa faced them together. They supported Amanda as she navigated the legal proceedings against David, and they took extra precautions to ensure their safety. Through it all, John realized how strong his bond with Melissa had become. They faced each challenge as a team, their love and commitment growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, John turned to Melissa. "I don't know what I would have done without you. We are in this together, John." "No matter what," Melissa replied, her eyes filled with love. John smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I love you, Melissa." "I love you too," Melissa said, leaning in to kiss him. As they sat together, wrapped in each other's embrace, John knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Their love was a beacon of hope, guiding them through the darkest of times and lighting the way to a brighter future. Chapter 9. The Climax. The aftermath of David S.'s arrest brought a temporary sense of peace to John and Melissa S.'s household. Amanda decided to stay with them for a while longer, grateful for their support and protection. Despite the recent events, they all tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but an underlying tension remained. One evening, as John was preparing dinner, his phone rang. It was Ryan. "John, we need to talk." "It's urgent," Ryan said, his voice tense. "What's going on, Ryan?" John asked, feeling a knot form in his stomach. "David made bail." "He's out," Ryan replied. John's heart sank. "What do we do now?" "Stay vigilant." "I'll keep an eye on things, but I thought you should know," Ryan said. "Thanks, Ryan." "I appreciate it," John said, hanging up the phone. John turned to Melissa, who had been listening to the conversation. "David S. out on bail. We need to be extra careful." Melissa S.'s face paled, but she nodded. "We will be. We'll get through this." The next few days were a blur of heightened security measures and constant vigilance. John installed additional security cameras around the house and ensured that all the doors and windows were locked at all times. Despite their efforts, the tension was palpable. One night, as they were getting ready for bed, John heard a noise outside. He tensed, listening carefully. There it was again, a rustling sound near the back of the house. "Melissa, stay here," John whispered, grabbing a flashlight and heading downstairs. He carefully opened the back door, stepping outside into the cool night air. The backyard was eerily silent, but John's instincts told him something was wrong. He scanned the area with his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. Suddenly, a figure lunged at him from the shadows. John barely had time to react, raising his arm to block the attack. He stumbled backward, trying to get a better look at his assailant. It was David. "David, what the hell are you doing here?" John shouted, trying to keep his voice steady. David's eyes were wild, his face contorted with anger. "You ruined my life, John! You took everything from me! You did that to yourself, David! Now get out of here before I call the police!" John warned, backing away slowly. David advanced, a sinister smile on his face. "You think you can just get rid of me that easily? I'm not going anywhere." John S.'s mind raced as he tried to think of a way to de-escalate the situation. "David, think about what you're doing. This isn't going to end well for you." David lunged again, and John barely managed to dodge the attack. He felt a sharp pain in his side and realized that David had a knife. "Melissa, call the police!" John shouted, trying to keep David at bay. Melissa appeared at the door, her face pale with fear. She quickly grabbed her phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed the situation to the dispatcher. John continued to fend off David's attacks, using the flashlight as a makeshift weapon. He knew he couldn't hold out much longer, but he needed to buy time for the police to arrive. Suddenly, the sound of sirens filled the air. David hesitated, his eyes darting towards the street. John took the opportunity to strike, hitting David's hand with the flashlight and causing him to drop the knife. David stumbled backward, clutching his hand in pain. The police arrived just in time, their lights flashing as they pulled up to the house. Officers quickly surrounded David, arresting him and securing the area. John collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily. Melissa ran to his side, tears streaming down her face. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. "I am fine, just a little shaken," John replied, wincing as he touched the cut on his side. An officer approached them, his expression serious. "Mr. Harrison, we'll take it from here. You and your family are safe now." "Thank you," John said, his voice filled with gratitude. As the police took David away, John and Melissa sat on the porch, holding each other tightly. They knew they had narrowly escaped a dangerous situation, but they were relieved it was finally over. In the days that followed, John focused on healing and moving forward. Amanda decided to move to a new city, hoping to start fresh and leave the past behind. John and Melissa supported her decision, helping her with the move and wishing her the best. Life slowly returned to normal, and John and Melissa found solace in their love and the strength they had shown in the face of adversity. They continued to build their future together, cherishing each moment and looking forward to the brighter days ahead. One evening, as they sat in the backyard watching the sunset, Melissa turned to John. "You know, through everything we've been through, I've realized something," she said, her voice soft. "What is that?" John asked, looking at her with curiosity. "We are stronger together than we ever were apart. No matter what comes our way, I know we can face it," Melissa said, her eyes shining with love. John smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "I know we can, and I wouldn't want to face it with anyone else." They shared a tender kiss, their hearts filled with hope and promise. The future was uncertain, but they were ready to face it together, hand in hand. As they sat together watching the stars come out, John knew that their love had been tested and had emerged stronger than ever. They had faced their fears, overcome their challenges, and found a love that could weather any storm, and with that love, they knew they could conquer anything. Chapter 10. A New Chapter. John and Melissa found a renewed sense of peace and security after David's arrest. With the threat finally behind them, they could focus on building their future together. John's wound healed quickly, a physical testament to his resilience and the strength of their love. One sunny Saturday morning, John decided it was time to make their future official. He had been planning a special proposal for Melissa, and everything was finally in place. He wanted it to be perfect, a celebration of their journey and the love that had brought them together. "Melissa, how about we take a little trip today?" John suggested as they enjoyed breakfast on the porch. "Where to?" Melissa asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "You'll see. It's a surprise," John replied, grinning. They packed a picnic and drove out to a beautiful park on the outskirts of town. The park was known for its picturesque views and tranquil atmosphere, a perfect setting for what John had planned. They found a secluded spot by the lake, shaded by tall trees and surrounded by blooming flowers. "This place is gorgeous, John," Melissa said, looking around in awe. "I'm glad you like it," John replied, setting up the picnic blanket. "I thought we could spend the day here, just the two of us." They enjoyed a leisurely picnic, sharing stories and laughter. The sun shone brightly, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. After lunch, John suggested they take a walk around the lake. As they strolled hand in hand, John felt his heart race. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind countless times, but now that it was here, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Melissa, there's something I've been wanting to say," John began, stopping by a large oak tree that overlooked the lake. Melissa turned to him, her expression curious and loving. "What is it, John?" John took a deep breath, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. "Melissa, you have brought so much joy and love into my life. You've shown me what it means to truly live and love again. I can't imagine my future without you by my side." He opened the box to reveal a stunning engagement ring, the diamond catching the light and sparkling brilliantly. "Melissa, will you marry me?" Melissa gasped, tears filling her eyes. She looked at John, her heart overflowing with love and happiness. "Yes, John! Yes, I will marry you!" John slipped the ring onto her finger and they embraced, their hearts beating in unison. They kissed under the oak tree, the world around them fading away as they focused on each other and the love they shared. They spent the rest of the day at the park, celebrating their engagement and dreaming about their future. When they returned home, Diana was thrilled to hear the news. "Congratulations, Dad! Melissa, I am so happy for both of you," Diana exclaimed, hugging them tightly. "Thank you, Diana." "We are excited too," Melissa said, her eyes shining with happiness. The next few months were a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Friends and family rallied around them, helping with the planning and offering their support. The community that had stood by them through thick and thin now celebrated their love and the bright future ahead. The wedding day arrived, a beautiful spring afternoon filled with promise and joy. John and Melissa chose to have an intimate ceremony at the same park where John had proposed, surrounded by their closest friends and family. Melissa looked radiant in a simple yet elegant gown, her smile lighting up the entire park. John stood at the altar, his heart swelling with love and pride as he watched her walk down the aisle. The ceremony was filled with heartfelt vows, promises of love, and expressions of gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this moment. As they exchanged rings and sealed their vows with a kiss, the gathered guests erupted into applause and cheers. After the ceremony, they celebrated with a joyous reception filled with laughter, music, and dancing. John and Melissa's first dance as husband and wife was a beautiful moment, their movements graceful and filled with love. Diana joined them on the dance floor, and soon everyone was dancing and celebrating together. As the sun set and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, John and Melissa took a moment to step away from the crowd. They stood hand in hand, looking up at the night sky. "We did it, Melissa. We made it," John said, his voice filled with emotion. "Yes, we did, and I wouldn't want to share this journey with anyone else," Melissa replied, her eyes glistening with happy tears. John pulled her close, their love and connection stronger than ever. They had faced countless challenges and emerged victorious, their love shining brighter than the stars above. The future was theirs to embrace, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of a lifetime of happiness together. As they returned to the reception, surrounded by loved ones and the warmth of their new beginning, John knew that they had truly found their happily ever after. And with Melissa by his side, he was ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that their love would guide them through any storm. Thank you for listening to this story. Subscribe to my channel, put a like under the video, and write a comment about how you like this story and what stories you want to hear.